Royalty. Royalty.
Today we're going to deal with the Hebrew word for love. I have the screen today because I'm going to do a wee bit of writing so that you can see what this love actually looks like. So, the Hebrew word for love is ahav. So it looks like this. Aleph, Hey, Bet. The word ahav. This word actually has a two-letter root, or sheresh is the word for root. And they both kind of mean the same thing. And the two-letter root can be aleph bet or aleph and hey. Both of those roots have to do with the idea of desire, which is very, very interesting. Okay, before we go deeper, let me give you the numerical value and the meaning of each of these letters. So, numerical value of aleph is 1. The numerical value of bet is 2. And the numerical value of hey is 5. Okay? So we have that laid out right now. Shalom. Today we're going to look at love. This is probably the most overused and not correctly defined word probably definitely in the English language, and even from westernized Hebrews to another. So we're going to take this Hebrew word and this English word and give it back its original definition according to the way that Yah intended for it to be used. In our lives, we want love. And there's always this feeling of lack or incomplete relationship when it's not being given. But we actually really don't know what's missing. Some of us attribute it to not caring enough or not spending enough time. And while all these things are valid, it boils down to a deeper and much more concrete meaning that can actually be fixed. Once we know the concrete definition of a word, then we can align ourselves to that definition, especially when it comes from Yah and it's so important to Him. Yah literally calls Himself love. And so we're going to actually understand why and how He does this, and by definition, why it makes sense. So the root word for love is aleph, hey, bet. Word is ahav. And the first picture is an ox, or power or strength. So aleph obviously represents a strong leader or a powerful one. So we get al, or el comes from, uses that word aleph. Hey is lo, behold, the. It also has a meaning when it is attached to other words, because it can be breath. It could be breathing forth something into another. And then bet is a house, a nomadic tent floor plan, or a womb. Okay, so we're going to see all those things working together. First thing we're going to look at is the aleph. The numerical value for aleph is 1. So you can see it over there. And the numerical value for bet is 2. Now, I'm gonna give you the definition of hay before I give you its numerical value. So the place where we get the definition from hay comes from the first time that it's mentioned in the root. So the first time it is the first letter of the root of a word. And that first time actually takes place when Joseph tells the guards or the people when he's in Egypt to give bread to his give grain to his family. So it actually has to do functionally with the idea to give. Another way to see this picture work is Abram, his name was Abram before it became Abraham. And Sarah, his name was Sarah before it became Sarah with an H. And one of the interesting things that happens is with adding the hay to their names, Yah adds his breath or his life or gives them something of his essence to them, thus transforming them and elevating them higher in order to increase them as the patriarch and the matriarch of the Hebrew people through the promised seed, and then through the promise of Abraham becoming a father of nations and Sarah becoming a mother of nations. Now I know you often don't hear that, but if you go back and read the passage in Genesis, Yah tells Abram he'd be the father of nations, so he's giving him the patriarchship over the nations as the father, and he's giving Sarah the matriarch place as the mother over the nations. And just to clear that thought, because I know people get stuck in places when thoughts are not completed. If you are a believer in the Brit Kadashah of the New Testament, one of the things that is said is Shaul calls the women of truth, or the women of faith, daughters of Sarah. Well, why? Because she is the matriarch. She is the example and of all the women that will come forth of this bloodline. So bring that forth. So the definition of hay is lo, behold, or to bring forth, or to give. So to give. And I'll make that smaller for you. So the easy definition for love, so ahav, is when one, a singular, or the one, or the aleph, or the strong leader, and in a more general sense, when the head of the family gives to two. So when the head of the family gives to two. So when the head of the family gives to the house, when the head of the family gives to the womb or to the woman. And this idea of giving means to multiply or to increase, okay? So not only to increase the family physically, but there's also a spiritual increase that happens when the one gives to the two. Oftentimes when we say we love something, it's because of what it does for us. Well, this definition of love completely dispels the idea that love then comes forth only when someone does something for us, because the definition of love is a person giving to another, and more specifically, Yah giving to his family or to his house, a husband giving to his family or to his house, a mother giving to her family and to her children and to the seed of the house. Okay, so it has to do with giving and not with how something makes us feel. Because oftentimes when something makes us feel less, then we obviously give less. But that's not how it works in Torah. What happens is that we give because it's actually multiplying and growing the family. It's not all dependent upon us. So in Hebrew, love should not wax cold, but it should always increase, because the increase of love has to do with the giving. If ever love stops being a functional part of the relationship, it's because the giving has stopped. So the question that should come next is, then what are we giving? The thing that is given is Torah. And not necessarily just somebody teaching you Torah, but a person actually acting out and living out the words of Torah toward another in order to increase and elevate them as a person, and vice versa. So the idea of giving is so much bigger than obviously just giving a seed. Man can just give a seed and create a family. But there's more to Torah than just giving the seed and creating a righteous seed, but there's also the raising up and the participation and the daily cultivation of the physical seed, which is the children. This can be seen perfectly well with gardening. That's why we need to get our hands back to the soil. It's one thing to just put the seed in the ground and for a wild branch or a wild fruit or a wild tree or anything to just start and come forth. But it's another thing to diligently handle and weed and pick through and be consciously involved in the relationship process with the ground between the husbandman and the soil in which it's sowing in. Same thing in a relationship. It's one thing for a man to just plant a seed and then for a woman to have a child and then for her with his resources to take care of the child. It's a completely different thing though when the man takes an active part in the process in helping to relate to the mother as she relates to the child and relating to the child as it relates to the family and to pick out weeds and to look at things that are happening and to cultivate the family as, like we say, the husbandman of the family. He's the husbandman of her womb, of the fruit from her womb. He's the husbandman of her. We're supposed to be elevating one another. And by doing so, she brings forth good fruit in order to give back to him as a gift and as a testimony to the good seed that was also planted. Okay, so love is the process of being in a state of giving. We should never remove ourselves from the state of giving. So in order to give, you must also be connected to a source of giving. Yah is the source of the original giving. As we're connected to Yah and as we commune with Him, then we have the ability and the opportunity to give forth from what He has already given us. When we disconnect from Him, then we feel like we lack and we feel like we have less because we don't have the source of love in order to feed into us for us to give it forth to our families. I'm going to show you something really cool. So we know that Hebrew letters also have numbers. So the Hebrew letter, or the Hebrew word, ahav, is actually, if you want to say love without it just being a root, it's aleph, hey, bet, hey. And so it's 1, 5, 2, 5. If you add those up, you get the number 13. There's another number that has a numerical value 13, and it's this letter right here. And so it looks like this: 1, 4, and 8. And so it's aleph, het or het, and dalet, and it also adds up to the number 13. This word means love. This word means one. They're the same. When you love, you have to become one. So the act of loving, because the human is very, very self-centered. It's part of our fallen nature. And so what Yah has done when He's told us to love our neighbors ourselves is for us to understand that really we're never going to love anybody more than we love ourselves. Our nature is inclined to love ourselves first. And so what Yah says is to look at yourself and then look at your neighbor also as yourself. And when you begin to see the other person as you, then you will love them as much as you love yourself. You mirror yourself with that person. And so in the relationship or in a marriage, you are to look at that person like you. And nobody has a problem giving their all to themselves. So you have to see yourself and your family as you, not an extension of you, but literally as you. When you've seen me, you've seen my wife. When you've seen me, you've seen my children, because they are a reflection of my love, what I've given to them, what I've put into them, what I've instilled into them. So Ahad is 13 and Ahava is 13, and they both represent this idea of love and unity within a family and within a relationship. So now that we know what love means, it'll be easier, I believe, with this concrete definition to move forward and to love by giving, to love in order to multiply, to give according to Torah, not what we feel like a person needs or what we feel like they don't need. We don't withhold Torah and the admonitions and the statutes and commandments of the relationship and of functionality and of unity from one another. We give it freely so that that person then becomes not only a reflection of us, but a reflection of the Torah and of Yah that's been poured into them. I hope that this helps you. It definitely helped me, spoke to my heart and to my life. And as we love, not only within our own family, but within our Hebraic community, I pray that we are able to see each other not as just loving our neighbor as ourselves, but literally that my neighbor is me, because not only are they a reflection of the giving of Yah that he's put forth into them, but they should also be a reflection of me as I live out Torah in my life. Shalom, shalom.
Royalty. Royalty.